It was almost
like a death nail. Like you socially ostracized yourself if you didn't go to college.
And I think I feel this to an extent. It's almost like college is part of the covenant path.
How about the car in the driver's seat? I pick you up, but there's only room for me. The only lane that I see is money green, but I pass you. Don't even try.
You are kind of like an interesting case. Because like, so are you going back to school?
Maybe. I don't know.
What's maybe? Why not? You finished what, 2 or 3 years?
Okay, so here's the thing. Like, I can go back to school, and that's really great. And you can get a degree, and that's awesome. And there's opportunities there that aren't available elsewhere, but there's opportunity costs. And so I don't think you should do college just to do it. You should have like a reason for doing it. And I see better reasons to do other things that are honestly more advancing of myself than I see college being right now.
So you went to 2 years of BYU, 3, and then you kind of dropped out?
No, like 3.
Or what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so you
and then I did Leadership Institute and just started that without finishing.
And so Leadership Institute, they didn't mind that you were basically just dropping out?
No.
Because I'm torn on this right now. Like, part of me just thinks it's so refreshing to hear that there's a young man that's like, okay, I just want to go out and just live my life and go gain real life experience and do all of that. But then there's also my mother, who is a public educator. I could just hear her screaming, rolling in her grave right now. Like, you do not understand the pressure that like my generation was under to go to school and not like, if you didn't get accepted to a major college, you might as well just be a criminal. Like, you literally might as well just like.
It was almost like
a death nail. Like, you socially ostracized yourself if you didn't go to college.
And I think I feel this to an extent. It's almost like college is part of the covenant path. Like, you have deacon, you have teacher.
Yes.
Sometime in there you get your patriarchal blessing. Then you have priest. You get your endowment a little before you go on your mission. And then you come back and go to college and get married.
No, seriously.
And then you get your degree either a little before or a little after you get married. And now you're at the end of the covenant path, either marriage or college degree, whatever comes second. Now you're done with kind of the path. And I think that's a good thing. Education is extremely important, and we need to keep emphasizing it. The problem that I kind of have with the way that some people appear to think about this is they've equated education with college degree. Once I get my college degree, now I've done my education.
Okay, but there is this. Okay, so like, part of me thinks, I think it's great that you're just literally pulling a Jeff Bezos, or you're pulling a Mark Zuckerberg, or you're pulling a who's another famous dropout. All of them were Steven Spielberg.
I know. I think Bill Gates didn't do well in a number of things.
Well, he dropped out of Harvard. Yeah, Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard. Yeah. So like, part of me thinks, okay, it's great that you're doing this. The A kids work for the B kids, that work for the C kids, and so much more. Like, Steven Spielberg himself said, I learned more on the first day of a real film set than I did in all 4 years of film school. Sorry, that was George Lucas. And I think there's truth to that, right? So part of me half of me lauds that you're just saying, you know what, I can always go back to school, but I can't always take advantage of these opportunities, so I'm just going to go for it, right? Mm-hmm. Part of me lauds that. But then the other half of me, like, I know the stats. Yes, you're right that a degree is not education, and we far too long conflated those two. We far too long thought that somebody with a bunch of degrees was actually smart, when in reality your car mechanic can be truly smarter than the guy with 7 degrees. This dude is just brainwashed and part of a freaking academic cult, and so yes, I think those arguments are right, but also I know the stats. On average, people that hold a degree still make 10 grand more, because it does provide that kind of neoliberal signaling function that, oh, hey, I was able to get into a system and have my peers rate me as good enough, and the authorities in whatever subject I was studying rate me as good enough to get this piece of paper and wear this jacket and claim to be an alumni of this university. And then now I'm one of the washin, you know what I'm saying? And I can go out into the workforce and demand, if not just from the authority of this paper, that, hey, I am worth more and actually reasonably expect to get more. And similar to how like America is still the best country in the world, we're in decline morally and in decline in all kinds of other ways. Okay. But we're still, though in decline, still better than all the other alternatives. At some point, I'm sure we'll cross over and, you know, be below the alternatives. But similarly, I feel like right now, the value of having a degree is in rapid decline. But I still feel, and maybe I'm wrong in this assumption, that it's still in the worth it category where like you should, but I don't know if that's just traumatized millennial Cardin, you know, from like, you don't understand. You'd walk down the halls at church and like, once you were 17, like once you got your Eagle Scout, it was like, oh, well now you're filling out college applications, right? And the pressure, if you did not say yes, well, are you dealing drugs? Oh, are you in trouble? Are you mentally ill? You know, it's just like, it was, you were just defunct, bro.
I might be saying something that's not actually true. I can't remember where I saw this, but part of this, like, people who don't go to college make less than people who do go to college. It's what are the reasons that they're not going to college? Because some people are not going to college to play video games in their mom's basement. Obviously, that's going to make you a little less money.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody's not going to college because they're going to a trade school. Maybe they're going to become a trucker and listen to audiobooks all the time while they're driving. You can get a lot of information from that.
Well, also, you want to make money? Learn a trade right now.
Yeah.
Like, you become a carpet layer.
So I think
you're making six figures.
Yeah, I think when you kind of split out the reasons why people didn't stay out of college, if it was actually to pursue something but just in another category besides college versus going to college, then those numbers start to become a lot more even. Because if you have a psychology major, and you and I both know people who have psychology majors.
I have a psychology minor, and my wife has a psychology major.
And then same with my wife.
Yeah.
If you have video editing skills, like I kind of do, if you have just practical kind of skills, you're a lot more employable than a psychology major. Like you got to get like a master's or a PhD to start doing somewhat decent as a psychology major. And so the direct comparison of just like a college degree versus a person who didn't go to college is just like really simplistic and not really a useful way of looking at the data. But I want to bring it back to if you did college, now you've like done your education part of living the gospel, and I'm not, I think that's great, and we need to do education, and I actually want other people to do what I haven't done. I want Latter-day Saints to be overrepresented in doctors, in lawyers, in very expert things that require that kind of schooling, but also have that openness to other paths and have an expectation of education that's more expansive than just college. Because if I'm feeling a little snarky and I get into a conversation with somebody who's kind of like, oh, you haven't finished college? No, I haven't. Well, didn't Gordon Hinckley say this about it? Didn't Thomas S. Monson say this about it? Doesn't Doctrine and Covenants 88 say this about it? I'll say, tell me how many books you've read in the past year. Well, there was actually the Harry Potter, you know, I read my kids The Hobbit or something. Like, okay,
I was about to say, you quote Harry Potter.
Let me pull out my Audible account. I've read The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. I have The Medieval Mind of C.S. Lewis queued up right now. I'm going to work on that soon. I'm trying to finish A Leg to Stand On first after I finish the Book of Mormon Witnesses. I have the John Adams book halfway finished. I still need to finish War and Peace by Tolstoy. I've read The Everlasting Man by G.K. Chesterton. I've read Dominion by Tom Hall and The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt, Remaking the World, Andrew Wilson, Mysterious Case of Rudolph Diesel by Douglas Brunt, The Case for Israel, Heretics by G.K. Chesterton, War and Peace halfway done by Leo Tolstoy, St. Thomas Aquinas by Chesterton, Chesterton, Intellectuals in Society by Thomas Sowell. So what we were talking again about education, sorry, I got lost in all these books that I've, and it's a little snarky and I know that, but why did I do that? How was I able to read those books? Because I was driving all over Virginia in the job that I took after I dropped out of college. You didn't do that in college, okay? I know how much people hang out with their friends, are just hanging out with their friends when they're studying in the library, okay?
Or if you do,
So-
you're not studying something truly useful.
Yeah.
Like, you mentioned video editing skills. If you are Adobe certified, which you can get in 6 to 8 weeks, there is not a production company in Hollywood that won't hire you entry level for $40 an hour right now. Mm-hmm. And then if you have any type of style and skill, you're going to get picked up by one of the majors and become an editor in a year or two of just actual real work before the kid that signed up and dumped $100,000 into 2 years of film school at USC, before he gets 2 out of 4 of his years done, getting $250,000 into debt. He's only $125,000 into debt by the time you're actually working for the job that he thinks he's studying for. Mm-hmm. And my only problem with college is there's just so much you do that is just like, I'm sorry, not relevant. I'm not convinced that you're not better off. Like all of my friends that have really high paying jobs in entertainment right now, they have a very similar story. They went to film school. They went to college to get their degree. So basically they could just say they had their degree. And then once they had it, they went to like a 6-week course on Sony Pro Tools. And then the teacher of the Sony Pro Tools class that actually did Michael Bay's sound was like, oh, we need another sound guy. Like, come work with us, right? Their degree didn't get them their job. The 6-week Sony Pro Tools course did, right? Mm-hmm. And they didn't need the degree to sign up for it. I have another buddy that just got Avid certified. And a friend of his worked at ESPN. They were doing a bunch of press for ESPN. I think like the Olympics or like the Super Bowl was on or something, where they needed a bunch of temp editors to just do a bunch of extra commercials because some big athletic event was coming on. And when the systems would break down at the end of the day, he had time and he'd fix them. And all he would do was just email the questions to Avid, like, this machine's not doing this. How do I fix it? And then the technician at Avid would just email him back and say, oh, do this. There's an obscure setting that's probably going wrong. And then boom. And so he'd fix the computers just by calling up Avid and being willing to wait on the phone or wait for a response to the email. And then he became known as like the guru that could fix stuff by like reading the label and the owner's manual of the software. And before he knew it, he was like hardcore editing for ESPN. It was like a top ranked editor. And so it's like, I want the pipeline of college to be true and not a myth, but I don't think it is true. But it's true enough that I think it's worth it, or could be worth it still. I just don't know where those two paths have crossed.
Yeah.
And if what you're doing right now is really ahead of the curve or irresponsible. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and you're my friend and I love you like a brother. So I want to, do my best with whatever influence I have to make your life better. But I don't know if going back to college is the best idea or not. I would err on the side of caution still and maybe say yes. But there's so many times where me going back to college cost me. I was a backlot studio tour guide at Universal Studios, and we had an all access pass. We could go hang out on the backlot during our breaks. And I was one of the only guys that took advantage of this. And I went down to the backlot. I'd meet the actors. I'd meet the directors. I'd see movie magic happening and, with firsthand experience. And I struck up some conversations with different people. And one of the producers of Suits came up to me and actually said, dude, you're cool and you're funny. You got a great personality and you're actually pretty resourceful. They had some problem not knowing where something was. And I helped them go get something from like craft services. It was like a simple errand I ran for him. And he said, I know the producer of this show and I know they need producers in art department. Would you be interested? And I was like, oh, thank you. I'm very flattered, but unfortunately, I don't have time. And he's like, well, you don't have time? Like, do you have to go back to work? I was like, oh, no, actually, I have to go back to college. Like, this is my last week here. I turned down a job that I was offered on the spot, on the back lot at Universal Studios to be a producer at Universal because I thought I had to go back to college to finish my degree so I would be worthy of, being actually graduated from film school. And it's like, I was offered the job then, but I was thinking like, no, I have to finish my degree or I'm one of those people.
Are you familiar with Razban's story that's very similar? Did you know Razban was like this? Apostle Ronald A. Razban?
No.
He worked with Huntsman before he was done with his degree, and Huntsman offered him a job before he was done. And him and his wife like prayed about it and stuff and took it. And kind of the way he talks about it seems like he had that regret for a long time of not finishing, but it almost seems like there's some sort of...
It's like you didn't serve a mission. You're like that guy in Elders Quorum that didn't serve a mission.
It's not even that bad. Like, mission is a priesthood responsibility, and of course there are exceptions, and I think the church has done a good job of being caring and compassionate about understanding those different things. But that's kind of like the covenant path aspect of getting a college degree. It's not only from the church, it's also kind of from the culture more broadly.
Oh, no. This is an American thing too.
Yeah. But I think some statements like Hinckley and Monson, and Nelson actually doesn't seem to have talked about this as much, and it might just be a result of the church spreading to places like Africa and Asia where that model doesn't really translate as well.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't speak about Asia. I'll speak about Africa. It doesn't translate that well into Africa as well as the United States. Going back to what they said, but I just, once again, I think people kind of were like, the divine injunction to get an education equals college, and it's kind of like the tick mark, and now I did the get an education part of it, and maybe I'll read a book once a year, and if something kind of is interesting to me, I might Google it sometimes, but hey, I did my education, and now it's time to just have more kids and take them along the covenant path because I'm done now. And so I'm not trying to denigrate college. I just want to, I think we might need to expand our vision of education out beyond college, and book reading, and kind of incite that in members, and like, hey, you're not done. I know you got a master's, and that was very hard, but that was 20 years ago. You probably should still try to be learning stuff.
Do you know what the true measure of being done with your education is? One of the coolest...
Becoming God.
Yeah. Well, actually, you're on the right path.
Okay.
One of the greatest Elders Quorum lessons I ever had was taught by the stake patriarch in Buenos Aires. Okay, I was in Congreso, and he got up and he said, what is the importance of education? It's an eternal principle. And people are like, well, it's necessary to have skill and trade and this and that. He said, okay, well, when does it stop? And kind of people they hemmed and hawed with their answers. And he's like, okay, yes, no, useful skills is one of the purposes of education, but this is like an inherent godly principle. Like, children of God learn. God is all-knowing. Until you are all-knowing, like, your purpose is to become like God, which means your purpose is to become literally like all-knowing. And he says, do you know what the prophecies are? And he's like, if you actually take seriously the prophecies from Joseph Smith, from the book of Revelation, from the Holy Writ, the church will be the backbone of society in the end times. We will be, as James E. Talmage says, the last institution to actually teach the true principle of love, right? We will be the backbone of education. We will be the backbone of if you extrapolate this out further, the medical system, the security system, so on and so forth. And so he starts pointing into the audience, and he says, you, brother, what is your profession? And the guy's like, I'm an engineer, and he's like, okay, could you run the mainframe of Buenos Aires if the government began to fail? And he was like, well, that's a little bit above I don't know. He's like, go learn. And then he looks at this guy and he's like, what are you? He's like, oh, I'm a plumber. I work by trade in plumbing. And he's like, okay, tomorrow the septic system fails for the city of Buenos Aires and the church has to take over it because it's corrupt and it's utterly failing and the church just has to buy it out to keep the sanitation system pumping. Could you become the minister of sanitation for Buenos Aires? You, engineer, could you head the Department of Engineering for the city of Buenos Aires, right? And he literally points to the surgeon in the room and he's like, there's only one man in this room that I think is probably done learning, and even he would say he's not done learning, and this is brother Alberto right here, who's literally a heart surgeon, right? You know. And the guy was like, oh yeah, I know, I got plenty to learn, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it was such a profound moment where I was like, wow, you really are never done, and we need to view ourselves as not just being good enough to sustain our families and like subsistence farming, but to be able to create such a surplus. Like one of the biggest definitions of manhood is our ability to create a surplus. Well, not just now a surplus for our families, but a surplus for our society when everything else fails. And how much of that is college? You know, that's
yeah, and there's certainly, in terms of like building the kingdom, I had a really interesting conversation with my brother. He's working with the company or the department of a company that's really leading the charge on the prefabbed temples. And so they have a plant that they made down in Mexico recently that they opened up that can have 75 individual pieces of modules from temples, and they can build a 10,000 square foot temple, like a little Hinckley sized temple thing, using about 23 modules. And this is like a thing that they're developing, that this hasn't been done before. And they're like on the cutting edge of this process. And it's in the service of making the houses of the Lord cheaper and therefore more more affordable, accessible and affordable to the children of God throughout the world. That's a college educated thing. Like, well, I mean, some of the technological know-how is very much college related. Some of like the practical, how will we set this thing up? Where will we put it? What will be the best routes? Maybe you don't quite need a college degree for that, but there's definitely tons of things that are college. But do 100% of us need to go and get a 4-year degree? Do even 80% of us need to? like, wouldn't 40%, you know, I'm not advocating like specific numbers here, but I don't know.
So do you think you'll go back, or do you think like it's
I
just not necessary?
I actually do. I do want to finish. And part of it is learning for learning's sake. And this is actually part of the thing, because you were talking about what's the practical use of college, and a lot of people think in that way. But I think if we're going to have like a divine conversation about education, more of the divine aspect of it, you just like learn for learning's sake. Like, I know G.K. Chesterton is probably not going to help you ever, at least in any monetary kind of way, but it's going to expand your mind. It might even expand your heart. You might end up using it either as a direct quote or just as a thought that he put in your head that you bring up later in a conversation with the son, in a Sunday school lesson that helps somebody else. You don't know, and you're not trying to pin down the practicality of this knowledge. You're just trying to pursue it because you're trying to pursue godhood. And that's one of his attributes. What
made you just walk away from your college education and not just sign up for the next semester out of like, just like, I'm in college now and that's what I have to do. I have to finish. Like, what made you like literally think like, nah, I don't think I want to?
I don't know if I could answer that all the way.
Okay. Like that. It's so just like, I was such a scaredy cat, and what you're doing to me is just like so brave. Like I know that you
Did we finish the Razband story? He did actually leave. I said that already, right?
Yeah.
He didn't finish his degree.
Yeah, he left. Didn't finish his degree, but
had
like
a great career.
You said that he like
business.
regretted it for a long time.
It appears that way. Yeah.
And he's like a freaking millionaire. Like, the other reason though why I'm able to calm my soul about this when I think about it is I just think, everybody you study in college as examples of how to do well in the field that you're studying never graduated from college. You know what I'm saying? Like all the example stories that you study, it's never people that graduated from college. Like the first generation of filmmakers that actually went to film school were like George Lucas and his buddies. But everybody else didn't. That most of them were vaudeville entertainers that just were like inventing the cameras as they went along and like just developing formats so that they would have the patents to the cameras. Like the first 100 years of Hollywood history, there's no film schools.
Walt Disney was totally like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't go and get like a theme park degree when you're the first person to build a theme
that's
park.
true.
In the way that Disneyland was.
Yeah, that was him and Gene Autry. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah.
For Disneyland or for like, because he developed new cameras and techniques and like the sliding.
No. Him and Gene Autry like teamed up basically to buy all the land. So if Gene Autry were an entertainer in 2024, he'd basically be like the Elon Musk of North America, because he really did. I think Gene Autry is one of the only men that has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for like all 5 categories, like radio, film, television, theater, and I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. But like, yeah, right over here is Gene Autry land. In fact, what's wild is my best friend in high school, growing up, his family wrote their mortgage checks to Gene Autry because he was still alive. And he had owned so much land in LA, like just buying areas to just like create like back lots or to film this movie there or whatever. And one of them, there was actually a house on it, and he kept there's literally some sound stages across the street from my friend's house growing up that he just kept for his horses. And then the houses he rented out. But he later on in life, he had like just a couple of property managers that worked for his like production company, because he was kind of in retirement, you know? So they literally wrote their checks to Gene Autry, like their mortgage checks. He carried the note. Like he didn't even pawn it off onto like a bank or whatever. He just sold the house. The family moved in. He met him and he was like, oh, yeah. Like, oh, how much is the house worth? Like 20 grand. And that was like a lot of money in the 50s, right? Mm-hmm. It was like 20 grand. Okay, cool. So what is that over like a 30-year period? This much. Okay, just send the check to my office, right? So for the first, like, until they refinanced or whatever in the late 90s, their family wrote a check to Gene Autry. You know, and it's like that was now people go to college to study how to be like him, not realizing that like everything he was doing was revolutionary, you know? And so, yeah, I don't know, man. I wonder what that's like to just, but then again, what good has my degree done me? Spanish and psychology, like, you know, like I got a bachelor's of fine arts. Actually, no, speaking Spanish and refining that skill has been wildly useful in my life. You can't,
but kind of like as a supplement to
yes, yes. Like I didn't become a Spanish poet, though I studied Spanish literature and poetry. And yeah, wow. So you're a college dropout, bro. That's just cool, man. So, last question. What would it take? What would be the inciting incident that made you think you actually had to go back and finish?
$40,000. Is that your offer?
Yeah, exactly. No, because now it's also just a function of time.
Yeah.
Like once you're working,
having 2 kids and being married,
you got a family to support now. It's like,
yeah, I do wonder. I'm surprised I don't see more antis. Maybe they just didn't get to the having kids point. I'm surprised there's not actually more like anti anger directed at being counseled to have children early and even sometimes before college, because the extra financial and time weight that can put on you, and even just sort of the psychological burden, I guess. I don't know. I'm surprised that they haven't latched onto that a little more, and maybe it's just that so many of them didn't actually do that. Didn't actually like get married really early and have kids while still trying to finish college. But
oh, you mean the people with sour personalities? It surprises you that people didn't want to date them?
Yeah.
You know, you have to have people liking you before you can actually go on, you know, get married. So, okay.
I think it's a good idea to do hard things, and college is a hard thing, and it's definitely the gateway that you have to go through to get to tons of other stuff. But then there's also tons of other stuff that you don't need. You didn't
feel that pressure, though. You didn't feel like that pressure from your parents or from like your ward.
No, I have felt pressure, from people. Okay. I guess I'm just contrarian.
Wow.
No, okay. I actually wouldn't say I'm contrarian, but an ability to take it into account, but maybe decide differently sometimes.
Wow, that's just interesting. All right, cool.
How about the car I'm in the driver's seat? I pick you up, but there's only room for me.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Before you go, please make sure that you like the video, share it with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please let this be the video in which we earn your subscription, and that you press the alert button so you're alerted to all of our fun live streams and standalone videos and community posts. Also, if you'd like to help us out, please consider joining the channel. Members get all kinds of cool perks and benefits. They get early access to a lot of our videos and special emoticons and emojis during our live streams and preferential treatment there. It's a lot of fun. Speaking of a lot of fun, we have a super cool Discord. If you'd like to join our Discord, check us out on WardRadio.com. There's a link to the Discord there. Also, you can sign up there for our newsletter. Our newsletter is a lot of fun, and you can put your email address in there. And if you'd like to contribute to the program, please consider looking us up on Venmo or on the CashApp. We're on both of those platforms. Also, if you just want to keep watching more content, right about here and probably right about here are going to be some more videos. Please check those out. And as always, for this and more, please make sure that you look us up and check us out at WardRadio.com.